It means comprehensively treating the patients or having a comprehensive exam to detect any issues before they actually happen.
Dr. Steph, how good to have you on my show. We've been working together behind the scenes for many, many months now, and I'm just absolutely thrilled to welcome you to Ageless Rescue.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be a part of your show.
Now, your own podcast, Growing with Grit, is a business show, but today we've got you on the show in the capacity of a dentist and an aesthetic practitioner with your own practice over in Broome. And I want to share your amazing and beautiful backstory with my audience before we start. You grew up on a farm. You live in Broome now. You grew up in a family of 5 sisters. And it's really that your childhood and your background has been a key defining part of who you are, and it's flowed into the way you practice aesthetics and dentistry. I'm wondering if you can share a little bit more about that.
Yeah, of course. So, as you mentioned, I grew up on a dairy farm in northern Victoria, and I am one of 5 girls. So, poor dad had a household of 6 women.
It would have been henpecked.
All strong personalities, which makes it even more fun.
I've met your dad, and I've had the honor of working with him on an episode we recorded with you. And for anyone who's listening or watching, I just want to say that Mr. Mulcahy is a formidable and accomplished businessman. You'll have to listen to that episode with him on Dr. Mulcahy's show, but the way that he speaks about women was so inspiring to me. And I can tell in knowing you and working with you that you've grown up in an environment and in a household culture that has been ageless, genderless, borderless. Like if you're good enough, you're old enough, everyone gets in. And, I've met your dad, so I can see where that iconic point of view comes from. Yeah.
Definitely. And I think my mum is also a very strong woman, and that's helped dad, not only the fact that he had 5 girls, so he kind of didn't have a choice but to embrace it. But they were always so encouraging for us. So we used to work on the farm from, forever, as soon as I could remember. But that was my first real job as well, where I actually got paid as well as volunteering just to help out. But we, as you mentioned, it didn't matter that we were females. Nothing held us back, whether it be from feeding the calves, which traditionally would be a female's role, but right through to, driving tractors and rounding up the cows on motorbikes and driving, different machinery and things like that stereotypically would be a male's job. We were all encouraged to do everything. And I think that, along with obviously the hard work that's required to run a farm, has been the basis of my upbringing, and then taking that sort of mindset into my own business as well.
And I would say that the first industry that you entered, dentistry, and you've shared with me your experiences in studying and your first work experiences and stuff. It is quite a male-dominated industry and profession, and you were a young woman, and your practice now where you are is in a country town where you didn't grow up, so you had to, on a number of levels, I guess, lean in on your training from the farm and use those skills in establishing yourself in the medical world, I guess. Would that be an accurate assessment?
Yeah, definitely. I think resilience, as you sort of mentioned, and also determination, they're probably the 2 biggest things.
It's your secret sauce, Steph.
Yeah, thank you. Dentistry is less male dominated in the younger generation. So sort of my year level going through, there was probably more females actually than males, but definitely in that older generation and our sort of mentors, most of them are men. So there wasn't many women in those days. And then obviously following through the tutors at university, again, male dominated. But it's funny you say dentistry because I actually attended a business workshop this week in London, and out of 42 participants, I think there was only 6 or 8 females. So business itself is still, I think, very heavily dominated by the male sex as well. So not only have we got the industry specific sort of domination, but also just in business in general. So yeah, it's still there.
You know, the show is called Ageless, and I always like to throw it back to that concept because, and you know, as we've worked together over the past few months, we found lots of similarities in our stories, in our life stories, even though we've grown up on different sides of the world under different circumstances. But one of the constant themes in your journey in business and in practice is that you're always quite young to achieve many of the things that you did, and so it took an ageless mindset where you didn't get stuck on the number to be able to put yourself forward for opportunities to treat people. You know, I can imagine that walking in to do a treatment, there are certain expectations if they've never met you before and you walk in and you know, we always talk about ages and we think it's about reversing age or getting younger, but actually ageless is just exactly what the word means, like ageless, where it isn't attached to a number. And I think sometimes for women, I'll speak for myself and I won't put words in your mouth, but sometimes as we get older, our capabilities, people are more comfortable with our capabilities and qualifications.
Oh, 100%. I remember when I first graduated, I used to deliberately wear a different uniform to the dental assistants because quite often I'd get asked when I walked into the room, "Oh, are you the assistant?" I'd say, "Oh, no, actually, I'm your dentist today." And they'd be like, "Oh, okay." Whereas now, I think because I've been in Broome for 5 years, people know that I'm the dentist, but I'm happy for us to
I would
all wear
hope
the
so after 5 years.
and things like that. Whereas before I tried to make a distinction because I felt, I guess more comfortable when people knew that I was a dentist without having to make it obvious to them.
Has it ever worked in your favor for people to be unsure about your age or underestimate you? Has it ever worked in your favor?
I think people just get comprehensively shocked, to be honest, at what I've achieved or having a comprehensive exam to detect any was funny, issues before being they actually in the aesthetics happen. Industry. Again, when I was in London last week, someone asked me if I was 25 and I said, "Oh, thank you. No, I'm not. But obviously the treatments are working." So that was helpful. Yeah.
The treatments are working. The treatments are certainly working. You've had such a diverse journey. I mean, we've talked about the farm, but you've worked on a cattle station, again, very male dominated, but coincidentally, that's where you met your husband. You've volunteered in Nepal. You were there for a year, I believe. Is that correct?
No, I wasn't there for a year. I just went for a volunteering trip. That was actually my final year of dental school. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So, you know, those are all diverse skill sets to bring to aesthetics and dentistry. What do you think you've kind of brought back from those big experiences, those uncomfortable experiences, I would have to say? You know, there isn't a universe that I can think of where I would volunteer to work on a cattle farm. Like there just isn't. That seems to me like an enormously hard, mentally, physically, emotionally thing to put yourself through. Same with volunteering in Nepal. Yes, it's joyful. Yes, it's transformative. I can see that. But, you know, it's hard.
It's funny you say that because working on a cattle station was always a lifelong dream of mine when I was younger. So I grew up on a dairy farm, but cattle stations are polar opposite, you know, wild cattle in the middle of nowhere, no phone service, desert pretty much, easy to get lost, whereas on our farm, the cattle are really quiet. You can go up to them and you can pat them and you can walk through the paddock and not have to watch your back and worried about, getting hit from the side. But I learnt a lot about independence, but also being resourceful. So if things break or, you get a flat tire, you can't just go into town and get a new one. You have to patch it up or, change your tire yourself and things like that. So that's a small example, but
this is where my feminism leaves my body. At this point, it's exactly at this point where I become ageist and sexist. It's like I want a guy to come and fix all of this, and I want him to be old, and I want him to be in charge.
yeah.
All the feminism leaves my body. Go on.
But going to both there and Nepal, I did really notice how disadvantaged these people were from a healthcare point of view. So Nepal especially, we went to this community that had never even seen a white person before. So they'd very gently touch my hair because, they didn't want me to feel it, but they'd never seen blonde hair before. They would walk hours to get to us. So we were working out of a school at the top of a mountain in the Annapurna Ranges. The little town was called Bangrang Chirawa. So it was about 2.5 hours north of Pokhara. And yeah, so, most of them didn't have cars or anything like that. They would walk about 6 or 8 hours a day uphill, sit there, wait all day to be seen. And if they weren't seen, then they'd walk home and then walk back the next day and just sit there and wait. And they were so happy, so loving and so grateful and also so generous. Like they'd always be trying to give us flowers or food or it was just so nice to be around. And it really made you realize, one, how lucky we are here, but also just how something that we take for granted, like healthcare, to them it's inaccessible. And so that I actually volunteered in Nepal after I'd worked on the cattle station, but both of those experiences made me realize, how hard it is for people that live in those remote areas to be able to access good healthcare. And so I wanted to be able to offer that to those people. Unfortunately, last time I looked into it, offering a remote service wasn't viable. However, I've sort of taken my clinic to another level by combining both the dermal and the dental. But on top of that, I've also been spearheading another project, which started yesterday, actually, finally, after it's been in planning for 2 years. But we're building a multidisciplinary healthcare centre in Broome that will have, GP, pharmacy, MRI, which will be the first north of Geraldton in WA.
If someone is listening to this, I don't think they understand the difference between remote communities and city living. I'm sitting on the 21st floor of a building in King Street, Sydney. In the, 100-metre radius, there must be 1 million medical centres, specialist doctors. I have a specialist for everything, like literally everything, and full access to it. But when you say that this is going to be an innovation, I really want people to understand how big a deal it is, what you're doing in your area.
Yeah. So, speaking of specialists, dental, for example, is not covered by PATS, which is patient-assisted travel. So if you go to see the GP and you need to see a medical specialist, the government will fund your flights and accommodation or a portion of to get down to Perth to see the specialist and have the treatment you need. But for dental, they don't. So they
Even
don't
emergency dental?
No. So we have to be able to do it. So rural dentists are, in my opinion, more diverse in their skills because, as I said, they don't have the option. They do have to do the treatments. But the same goes with aesthetics in a way. Like it's not easy for people to travel down to Perth to have treatment done. And so we try to offer a really diverse range of treatments to give our patients. the types of care and individualise those treatment plans as much as we can.
I think the super clinic is going to be a big story in the next decade, whether it's in the city or a remote area. I think allied care and a network of specialists within the one
interdisciplinary approach
exactly is really important. And I think it's really exciting that you're spearheading this. I want to take a step back and talk about something that I learned about you, which was, again, quite innovative and surprising, is that 2 years after you finished your dental degree, you bought your dental practice, which just seems like another big, uncomfortable leap. Can you tell me about that? Because then from there, we're going to talk about what you did next, which is equally surprising and uncomfortable.
Yeah, so I did work in a remote practice for my first job out of university as well. And I learned a lot clinically, but from the perspective of how the patients were treated, I really wanted to be able to treat my patients using a proactive approach and to be able to create an environment that fostered sort of confidence within the team and also the patients. And
Can I ask you what a proactive approach in dentistry looks like? What does that mean?
It means comprehensively treating the patients or having a comprehensive exam to detect any issues before they actually happen.
So instead of troubleshooting, you would really look at what might be underlying, what they might need to look ahead to, and what they could benefit from now.
Yep. And so we try to treatment plan, with years in mind. So we might say, this tooth here has several cracks in it. It's got a big old metal filling in there. It does need a crown, whether that be sooner rather than later, if the cracks are looking, quite sort of open, or in the next few years, we're going to have to look at doing this. And so we try to preempt the treatment that needs to be done and then plan for it. Especially even if we're talking just about wisdom teeth, for example, because there is no surgeon at the moment that can come to Broome to do that treatment, although that's something that we're working on. But we don't want to wait until those teeth play up and become infected and have a problem, because when that happens, the patient has to get on the plane and travel straight to Perth to get it done. Whereas if they can get those teeth out preventatively, it's less likely to play up and cause an issue, because 9 times out of 10, when it plays up is when they're sick, run down, tired, something else is going on in their life, and that's not the right time to be flying down to Perth to get an emergency treatment done. So we want to try and preventatively treat these things so they don't become an issue and need to be sort of dealt with immediately.
I think that that's a really interesting perspective, because there's so much legislation that's just come in, right? The TGA around what you can and can't say about aesthetic treatments, and your price list can't even refer to things that are considered scheduled medicines.
Mm-hmm.
Your advertising can't, your social media can't, you can't be quoted in an article, you can't speak on a podcast about it. Because what they're trying to do, the end goal, according to the TGA, is to drive consultation, improve consultation, enhance consultation. And some of the doctors that I've spoken to, apart from the annoyance of the way that it may have been handled, they have said that they're pleased that it is bringing back a level of treatment planning that may have otherwise been missing, not from the doctor's side, but the patient side, because the patients would book in for a treatment. So whether it be, as you said, an extraction or a clean, when it comes to dentistry, or in aesthetics, it might be for dermal filler or whatever they wanted. Whereas now, because of the changes in legislation and the consultation being the centerpiece of the conversation, innovative plans like yours, where you're saying we're going to talk about a treatment plan, we're going to look at preventative care, it seems to me that that's going to be the way forward across aesthetics and dentistry and surgery.
Yes. And so that, from that perspective, it hasn't really affected us too much, because we were already doing that anyway. And we do like to, as I said, treat our patients comprehensively, but also review those treatment plans. So, you might have a certain procedure or, a condition that you're treating. And some people respond really well to certain treatments and some people not so much. And so we review those treatment plans every 3 months for dermal, 6 months for dental, and make sure that the patient is responding as we expect them to. And if they're not, then we like to pivot and sort of pick a different modality. So then we know that we're always treating the best we can and treating the current condition instead of what may have been there when you initially made the treatment plan 3 or 6 months ago that might not be, the condition that you're trying to target 6 months later.
So talking about technology and improvement, I would love for you to share some of the values that your business is kind of underpinned by, because it seems that kind of is the stepping stone for everything, right? That's the foundation. And then from there, you make a lot of decisions on what technology you invest in, what systems you invest in, how you hire, how you develop your team, how you develop your menu of services. So I'd love for you to share with us, because I think from knowing you, a lot of what you do is universally applied outside of to any industry, really.
Yeah, so Dental Code operates or lives and breathes 4 core values. It's confidence, innovation, proactivity, and gratitude. And as you mentioned, everything that we do is underpinning, or those values are underpinning everything that we do. So right through from hiring to make sure that we're hiring people that are aligned. My personal philosophy is you can teach technical skills, but you can't teach personality. So if people aren't aligned with what we're trying to achieve as a business, as a company and as a team, and also to treat our patients, then they're not the right fit for us. It also underpins, again, like researching different equipment or technology or products. If it is aligned with our values, then that's something that helps us make the decision. And then right through to discussing things with the team. So whether it be, different behaviors and things like that, we always act with our values in mind. And so if we need to have a conversation, even if it's a difficult conversation with team members, which, to be honest, they become less when you hire people that are aligned with your values, those numbers of difficult conversations really drop down as well. But if we do need to have those conversations, then you can always relate it back to the values and say, within our value of proactivity or innovation, how does this, certain behaviour that was displayed relate to those values? And then it just helps bring everyone back into alliance again.
You talk about a concept of unique selling distinction in your business. Can you elaborate on that? What does that mean, and how does it look in your business?
So Dental Code's unique selling distinction is that we offer both dental and dermal services, and we offer that in a holistic approach. And so if you come in for a consultation in dental, we also bring up dermal. You wouldn't have a full consult in the dental clinic, but we just bring up any sort of issues or any questions that people may have, and then we can refer them across to the dermal for a dermal consultation or vice versa. But when I was studying for my dermal, I noticed that there was a lot of women that had absolutely beautiful skin that needed to give their smile a little bit of attention, or vice versa in dental, especially in Broome, there's so much sun damage. And so
I was just about to say that. Would that be the starting point for the dermal consultation? Sun damage, skin cancer, rejuvenation from all that sun exposure?
Most of the time, yeah. Yeah. And so or melasma actually is a really common one, which can also be triggered from increased sun exposure. And we've just got a new device actually that can treat those conditions that historically are quite difficult to treat.
What's your new device?
We have the Aerolase, so the Neo Elite Aerolase.
I've
So
had the
it's,
Ageless. I
yeah,
love the Ageless.
it's
It's a
amazing.
great laser. It's a
So
great laser.
we chose to go with the Aerolase for a couple of reasons. The three biggest reasons for us is one, the inclusivity. So Broome is a very multicultural town. If you have been there, you would probably know, but we have
I
a
haven't
lot of
been there,
different.
but I have heard it's actually quite a big multicultural hub, right?
It
Lots of
is, yeah.
lots of commerce, lots of nationalities.
Yeah, so historically, yeah, right back from the 1800s. So there was a lot of Japanese and Chinese that came over for the pearling industry, and that's sort of come through as the generations obviously have gone on. But also we
And
get a lot of
speaking of the pearling
travel.
industry, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but Dr. Steph has quite the pearl collection, and I enviously comment on all of her beautiful jewelry every time I see her because you can tell she's a Broome girl now because she has some serious pearl jewelry.
You have to when you live in Broome.
Yeah, right.
So a lot of traditional laser devices or IPL devices couldn't actually treat those darker skin types. So that was one of the biggest things for us. The second decision factor was that the Aerolase is painless. I wouldn't say it's pain-free, but a lot painless. So
Yeah, I can
you're
definitely,
having,
for
and
sure.
for the types of treatments that you would have had, it probably is pretty much painless. But
Yep.
for it's more blood vessels and things like that that you can feel. But it's generally it's just sort of a warm feeling. Would you say it wasn't
Yeah,
me?
I mean,
Yeah.
I've had 3 experiences with it now, I wanna say, and, not only was it pain-free, but it was also no downtime, which I really appreciated, and I wasn't concerned because I do have melasma as well, and my skin can't handle heat-based energy
Mhm.
devices. Like, if it
Mhm.
goes over a certain temperature, I mean, I can't even have a hot bath without it triggering my melasma,
Oh
so
wow! Yeah.
any energy devices I'm really careful with.
Mhm.
And I don't know what Fitzpatrick I'd be, but I'd say probably like, what, 5? Something
Yeah,
like
we've got
that.
your
Mediterranean, yeah.
historically, yes. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I've got Middle Eastern kind of complexion. I'm fair for Middle Eastern, but still, it's olive.
Yeah.
So I hadn't used a laser for years before I had Aerolase, and it was really hard to convince me to use a laser. So it was after reading up on it that I was convinced, okay, I feel safe to have it.
Mhm.
And I had it with Dr. Cosima here in Sydney and at her clinic. And it was really, really compatible for me. It gave me a beautiful outcome, like nice, even skin tone,
Mhm.
um, plumpness.
Texture.
Yes, and I
Yeah.
definitely could see a difference immediately. When I say immediately, like the next morning, but
Yeah.
also it got better. There was,
Yes.
the collagen induction was definitely something that I could see 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks afterwards. So
Mm.
yeah, it's a great device. And I would also think for your practice, being a small portable device would be good because if it's traveling all the way to Broome, you don't want it to have a million parts and be this enormous thing, right?
Yes, exactly. It was a big decision for us actually. So we're the first in Western Australia, the fourth in Australia to have this new device. So we did do a lot of research. I sent my dermal practice manager across to Sydney. So we had seen it originally at a conference, and then I sent her across there to have the treatments as well, and to make sure that it was something that would treat all the things that we needed it to. And yeah, decided to take the plunge, and we're really happy that we have because, as you said, we've been seeing amazing results and really happy with how it's going.
And can I ask, in a town like Broome, what is the level of openness to, segueing from a dental appointment or consultation to addressing things like aesthetics, the need for laser, the need for uh, any other kind of treatment? It, is it a comfortable segue for them? Or is that something that, your culture has kind of preconditioned your clients to expect from you, that you're going to guide them on things that they may never have thought of?
I think the latter. Traditionally, injectables, for example, are a little bit harder for patients to come around to if they haven't had it before. But a lot of them are more open to trying sort of energy-based devices or other dermal treatments. And then usually once they start to see results, then, they want to explore the other side of it as well. But as you said, because we've defined our branding so well in our community and those values of confidence, innovation, proactivity, and gratitude, then that's the type of patients that we are attracting as well. And so usually those patients are more open-minded to trying these things, or at least sort of exploring their dermal consult and then going from there, which has been amazing to see.
I've done a couple of episodes with dentists, and my dentist in particular, who has a really unique approach to how dentistry can really impact beauty and an aesthetic outcome. And he is part of many, for example, facelift teams. He'll be called in to be part of that planning for the patient. And I'm wondering if you could tell me, in your experience, or perhaps, where you see it in dental code, how important is dentistry as part of an overall aesthetic solution?
Oh, huge. So, your smile obviously is one of the first things that people notice about you. It gives off an energy. So if you're happy and smiling at people, usually they'll smile back at you, which gives yourself a boost. But also the opposite is true. So if you're walking around, looking sad and not very happy, then that sort of gives off an energy that people don't really want to approach you as well. So from just having a friendly smile, there's also that. But if you take it a level deeper than that and think about the actual aesthetics of the smile or the face, if you're missing teeth, for example, your face sinks in, your jaw can become sort of overclosed. It can make your chin sort of be protruded, so stick out and bring it forward. But also orthodontically, so if people naturally have a retruded mandible, so a smaller jaw, by putting filler in there, it's not always going to be the best option because the underlying facial structure is not prominent enough. So by being able to combine it with dental, you can create that volume initially on the inside and then just be able to refine it with the filler instead of trying to sort of fill a space that needs a lot more hardy sort of base underneath to be able to give it the aesthetic look that they're looking for.
You touched on something when you were talking about smiles, which I think is lovely. You talked about confidence, and I definitely can relate. I remember that I had a tooth here at the front that needed a root canal and a crown. And then because I think of the nerve damage, it would discolor. And until I had my crown, I stopped smiling.
Yeah.
And it was so subtle. No one noticed it. I noticed it like it was a big beacon. But during that time that I had stopped smiling, people started to interact with me differently. And people would say to me, "Is everything okay?" And I'd say, "What do you mean?" Like, used to be so, gregarious, always really high energy, super confident. Is everything okay? And I think I projected that I was less confident because it had changed the way that I interacted with the world. And as you said, a friendly smile or a happy smile is really a pre-communication tool that really introduces you before you even open your mouth, literally, before you start speaking.
Yeah.
So I'd love you to talk to the value of confidence and to that theme a little more.
Yeah, of course. So as mentioned, one of our core values is confidence, and it's confidence in a number of ways. So one, it's confidence that we're giving to the patients. So as we just discussed, if a patient's feeling more confident, they're more likely to step out of their comfort zone and do something that they wouldn't normally do. And I am a huge believer in that if you're confident in your appearance, you portray that, as you just sort of mentioned, that, you might go for that job or stand up and do a speech that previously you would never have done if you're not feeling confident within yourself. So there's that point of view. There's confidence that we give our patients by doing those comprehensive treatment plans, both dental and dermal, and ensuring that we do have their best interests at heart with their short and long-term treatment goals, and also that we do actually know what we're doing. And also confidence in our team. So our team has confidence that they can communicate with me and the other leaders in a way that's, level planed, and that we also want everyone to play to their strengths. So if someone's in a certain role and they don't like certain aspects of it, but then there might be another team member that's really strong at those things, I'm open to the team sort of working together to get the best out of everyone, not to force someone to do every aspect of that certain role because that's what the job is. And also confidence that we innovate and that we sort of follow through on all our values as a business. So confidence in many different levels.
You mentioned something that I think you talked about, everyone having a specific role and having confidence in their role. One of the things that I found interesting when I was learning about your business is that you have a dedicated dental hygiene department. And as I have learned more about dentistry through the interviews that I've done, one of the key things that I've become obsessed with is dental hygiene, like really obsessed with it, because it impacts so many things, not just how your teeth and how your mouth looks, but it impacts your cognitive health, your gut health, your longevity. There is so much detailed research, and I want anyone who's listening to this to look into this, because this blew my mind, that having good dental hygiene, oral hygiene, has the potential to prevent early onset dementia, gut issues. Pardon me?
Preterm birth.
Preterm, like the benefits of having a clean teeth, clean mouth, clean gums cannot be underestimated. So when I read that one of the key things that you have installed as part of your business is a dedicated hygiene division, I was like, this is really good, because this is exactly what I talk about, cellular wellness. It's not just about being beautiful, it's about being cellular well.
One way that I explain to patients, which might sound a little bit crude, but gingivitis,
I want to hear this.
is sort of a silent disease. So a lot of the
gingivitis is
and periodontitis. So if you're brushing or flossing well, it'll bleed. A lot of people that have it, their oral hygiene's not immaculate, so they may not notice that. But if you were to imagine that you had an ulcer on your arm, for example, that was this big, and think about all the toxins and all the inflammation, everything that's going into your body and how bad that is, if you took every little bit of tissue around each of your teeth and put it together and made, something probably this big of all that.
So for anyone listening, this big is about the size of a soccer ball, a football.
Yeah.
Football. Wow.
So if you imagine that, if you had that festering away on your arm, would you just leave it there? But because it's in your mouth and you can't see it, a lot of people don't realize the damage that it's actually causing, as you said, to your whole body, not just your teeth. But the other thing with your teeth is that usually you don't notice the damage that it's causing until it's too late. And that's when the teeth become loose. And by that stage, there's not a lot that you can really do. And I feel like it's a bit of a domino effect. And once you get to that stage and teeth, you start losing them because there's no bone to hold them in anymore, then it's too late. And you don't have enough bone to put implants in and things like that as well. So it's really
I did a
important.
whole episode on dental implants, and that was like mind blown. That is a big deal, and you just want to look after your bones. You want to look after your mouth as long as you humanly can, because that's big surgery. That's a big commitment.
And you need your teeth all day, every day, to eat, to speak, for looks, to smile. It's not just, I know, some people don't say, oh, it's just at the back, don't worry about it. But as I said before, it's a domino effect. And once one tooth missing, then the other teeth lean in, and it just becomes problem after problem. So prevention, and going back to the hygiene department, which I sort of went off topic there, but
No, it's the best
prevention
topic
is
of
the
all.
biggest.
It's my favorite topic, and I've become absolutely devoted to good hygiene. I'm like a massive fan and consumer of all the High Smile products. I've told you about the boys before, but they have made brushing my teeth, and Lily, I have a 13-year-old daughter. She has a collection of their toothpaste, their whitening strips, their mouthwashes, all of that. And it feels like a beauty. It's part of our beauty routine. And my dentist is very, very, very proactive on professional cleans. Like, I am dragged in. We have to go on time. And there's, he uses sonic cleansing, which is really fun and painless. So Lily loves having her teeth cleaned as well. And I do too. I like going to the dentist. I always have. But I think that, thinking about oral hygiene as an aesthetic tool, as a longevity tool, really reframed how important it was for me as part of my beauty routine. It really did.
And that's an area that we focus on innovation as well. So not only having that dedicated hygiene department, but we've also invested in the EMS airflow. So we've got 2 of them in our practice.
I love that machine. It's so fun. It's like a day spa. It's like hydrofacial for your teeth.
It is. And so it does a few things. Because of that, it softens the build-up. So it makes the actual cleaning of it less uncomfortable. But it also heats up the water as it's coming through. So you're cleaning with body temperature water. So it reduces the sensitivity that a lot of people have from the cold water traditionally that you would have during the clean on their teeth as well. And then on top of that, obviously removing the staining and the plaque, which is obviously amazing. It makes your teeth nice and white and clean as well.
Can I ask you, how has the introduction of aerolase and the
Airflow.
teeth, the airflow technology, how's that aligned with patient outcomes and your values in the business? Because they're not things that every clinic offers. So you must have brought them in for more than just a commercial reason.
Oh, definitely. So one of our values is innovation, and we are constantly looking at the best technology that we can bring to our clinic, but also our community. I have a huge passion for offering the best healthcare to rural and remote patients. I feel that often there is a disadvantage statistically, actually, there's a disadvantage between city dwellers and also rural and remote people, and it reflects in their health. And so by being able to offer the best technology available, then again we can perform that proactive treatment and also give our patients the confidence that we are offering the best that there is.
It's funny you should say that, because I had a dentist that I went to, I want to say for 20 years. And one time, I don't know what it was, I walked in and I looked around and I thought, they have not invested in anything, like literally nothing. The reception looks exactly the same as it did as I walked in 20 years ago. I've never been offered anything different. I was aware that there were other ways of having your teeth cleaned other than scraping them. Never been offered that. It just felt like they weren't invested in technology or innovation. And I went to an event where my dentist was speaking, and I just looked at him and his team, and I thought, I go to the best hairdresser in town. I go to the best aesthetic doctor in town. Why on earth am I leaving my dentistry to someone who's stuck in 1978? And everything from their brand was just no longer me. And it just didn't feel like my health was in progressive hands.
Mm-hmm.
So, when I look at your branding, when I look at your logo, when I look at your values, for me, that says, I haven't been to your clinic, but to me, subconsciously, it says I'm in the right place for my health goals to be, addressed in a modern way, because medicine, aesthetics, everything is moving so fast. Like literally what was hot and relevant 3 years ago, we're 10 years ahead of that now. So I want to know that my dentist, my doctor, my aesthetic practitioner, my gynecologist, my hairdresser are all invested in the best gear, in the best technology, in the best training. It makes me happy to see my aesthetic doctor speaking at conferences. And I would say the same would be true in what you do, right?
Oh, definitely. So I purchased an existing dental practice 5 years ago, and it was definitely based on an illness model. So patients would come in when they had an issue. They would just want things patched up, and then they'd be on their way until the next time something broke. And it did take a long time to have to re-educate those patients on proactive care and turn that around to be a wellness model rather than an illness model. And now you'll see
that's cool. I like
they
that.
really want to rebook their next preventative care appointment because they know the importance of it.
For sure. And you know what? I'll even say, so when it comes to Lily, I wanted her to love going to the dentist. That was so important to me because I knew how important oral care is. Mm-hmm. And I wanted her, from her first experience, not to be scared of it, not to be put off by it. And so our dentist, FY Smile, here in Sydney, they have like an amazing pediatric program. And then as she became an adolescent and teen and all of that. But when it came to her orthodontics, I was like, oh God, she's going to have to go through the same revolting process of braces that I did. But Dr. Fadi was able to, fast forward into 2024 instead of 1989 when I had mine or whenever it was, and say, we don't have to pull out 7 teeth. We don't do that anymore. She doesn't need braces. She can have Invisalign. Mm-hmm. And her orthodontic journey has been a technological dream. It's been so modern, so lovely. She feels, so excited and happy for every scan, for every visit. And I think that that's just awesome. I think that that's really important to know that, the progress with technology that you're investing in makes the patient experience completely different. And I think
100%.
that's
and one thing you touched on then as well, I think it's really important for the parents to be on board with that proactive approach, because if the parents are unsure or, scared of the dentist, and they often portray that onto their children as well. And even if the child's fine in the chair, but then the parents are saying, "Oh, are you okay? Are you all right? Is everything okay?" Then it makes them feel like they should be worried and something should be wrong. And then that actually makes them feel less confident to be there. Whereas if the parents, even if they feel that way, but they're able to, push past how they're feeling and just sort of say, we're doing this for our prevention, we're here for a clean, and here's Dr. Steph, and she's just going to go through this, this, and this, and then they just let the child be, then that's the best thing that they can do as well to set them up for success going forward into the future as well. Yeah, so if the parents are feeling anxious to come to the dentist, often they'll portray that onto their children. So even if the child's, just laying there feeling fine, but if the parent's saying, "Are you okay? Is everything all right?" then just them asking that question is making the child feel like something's not okay or they should be worried. And then that triggers the child to feel anxious to come in. So it's really important for the parents to just try and sit back, even if they do feel anxious, but to not portray that onto the child and just let the clinician, treat the child and have their experience. And then they come out and they get their little prize and their certificate and off they go. And it's actually not as bad as what they think it might be.
I want to talk about a couple of other values that you have as part of your business. One is inclusivity and one is gratitude. And I'm wondering if you could just touch on those 2 points, because they're unusual business values, especially in healthcare. And well, not so much inclusivity, but it's wonderful. I did a panel on inclusivity from the aesthetics industry at ABIC, and
Yes.
I've recorded a podcast which will go live next week. So I was really thrilled to see that was a core value in your business. I'd love you to talk, a little bit about that. And then on gratitude, because I found that unusual and I liked it. Put a big smile on my face.
Inclusivity, I think it's quite self-explanatory. So we want to offer the best treatments for everyone, as you said, ageless, sexless, so any age, any gender, any treatment options for those individuals, whether it be dental or dermal. We want to be able to offer something for everyone. And again, that's probably one of the biggest factors in our decision for investing in the Ageless, because that was the only energy-based device that could treat those darker skin types, which you do see a lot of in our patient base. Gratitude is something that I feel really grateful to have such an amazing team. I feel grateful to have an amazing patient base, and also just within our community, they're so inclusive and supportive, and everyone's always sort of patting each other on the back and being really uplifting, which is amazing. And I think that that's something that is very unique to Broome as well. There's not a lot of competition between everyone. We all know that there's enough work for everyone, and we try to help each other out and and focus on our areas of differentiation and growth compared to other businesses. So that's something that I'm grateful for, but also grateful for learning opportunities for both myself and my team. Something that we do focus strongly on is development, and it's not just clinical development as well. So obviously that plays a huge factor in both mine and my team's education. But one of the other things that we do focus on is just educating around life. So whether, I had a guest speaker last year come and speak to the team about personal finances. We had another guest speaker come to speak to us from a luxury cruise ship, and she was talking about customer service and different ways to word things and things like that. And then we also had a guest speaker who was an undercover policeman or detective, and he's competed in marathons all around the world. And so he was talking about more dedication and resilience and being an uplifting and, a positive person. But so I think growth to me and being grateful to have those opportunities is something that's really important. And you can't grow professionally if you don't grow personally. And if you haven't grown personally, then that caps how much you can grow professionally as well. So that's really important to us and our team, and also then in our hiring philosophy as well.
I know that, it seems like a perfect pivot, but it really is a perfect pivot, because your podcast, Growing with Grit, encapsulates so much of your, not just your personality, but your experience. And exactly like you just explained then, one of the things I loved about producing your show for you was some of the incredible guests you had on your show. And like you just explained, that you bring in these speakers and experts and wonderful, wise people to speak to your team. I feel like the Growing with Grit podcast, one of the things that makes it really special is that it's a combination of some beautiful storytelling moments from your childhood up, from the farm, from the outback, from your travels, um, from moments that, you really had to push through with grit. And then these wonderful conversations that you have with inspirational people who have inspired you or informed you or coached you. And I think that that's a really special aspect of how you must lead in your business as well. And this conversation with you has been so fantastic because, the Ageless podcast is about cellular wellness, aesthetics, and longevity. And I think that it's really lovely to have examples of that, not just in those specific fields, which, we've talked about, but also people who embody that and live that philosophy as well. And I hope that if someone is listening and they're at either the beginning, the middle, or the end of their career, and they want to have a look at an example of how you can do things differently, I hope that they can, they've gleaned something from our conversation today. And I would definitely invite them to check out your show, Growing with Grit. It's so full of lovely stories. It's a great listen. There's a couple of great, really warm-hearted episodes in there, as well as some, solid business advice. But yeah, it's a great show, and this conversation has been absolutely brilliant. I really want to thank you for being on my show.
And thank you very much for having me. It's nice to be on the other end of the table.
Absolutely, absolutely. Dr. Stephanie Mulcahy, thank you so much for being on the show. I wish you a wonderful afternoon. And if you are interested in following and hearing more from Dr. Steph, you can listen to her show, Growing with Grit.
Thank you very much, Bahar.